The first time Sophia Carter saw blood on a customer's shirt collar. She was already 10 hours into her shift, and her hands had gone numb from the lye soap. It was 1883 in Randsburg, California, a mining town perched in the Mojave Desert where the sun beat down mercilessly, and hope dried up faster than puddles after a rare rain. She had been working at Murphy's Laundry for 3 years, ever since her father died in a mining accident and left her mother bedridden with grief that eventually turned into consumption. When her mother passed 6 months later, Sophia found herself utterly alone at 18, with nothing but debt and a rented room above the general store that cost more than she could afford. The shirt belonged to a cowboy, or so Mrs. Murphy had said when she tossed it into Sophia's basket that morning. Sophia held it up to the light filtering through the small window, examining the rust-colored stains. Not his blood, she hoped, though in Randsburg it could have belonged to anyone. The town attracted prospectors, drifters, outlaws, and honest men in equal measure, and sometimes it was impossible to tell which was which until it was too late. She scrubbed at the collar until her knuckles cracked and bled into the water. Mrs. Murphy would dock her pay if the shirt came back anything less than pristine. The old woman ran the laundry with an iron fist and paid her girls in pennies, claiming it was all she could afford even as she wore new dresses to church every Sunday. Sophia earned $3 a week, barely enough to pay for her room and a bit of food. She had learned to make a single loaf of bread last 5 days and to ignore the gnawing hunger that had become her constant companion. "You still working on that one shirt?" Clara, another laundry girl, paused at Sophia's station. She was older, maybe 30, with tired eyes and hands as raw as Sophia's own. "Mrs. Murphy will have your hide." "Nearly done," Sophia said, though she wasn't sure that was true. The blood was stubborn, set deep into the fabric's weave. Clara leaned closer, lowering her voice. "That belongs to Cole Jackson. You know, the cattleman who rode in last week. Word is he's bought up the old Henderson ranch, plans to run cattle through the valley despite the drought. Got more money than sense, if you ask me." Sophia had heard whispers about Cole Jackson. In a town like Randsburg, everyone knew everyone else's business, or thought they did. He had arrived with a dozen men, paid cash for the ranch, and set about repairing fences and buildings that had fallen into disrepair after Old Man Henderson drank himself to death. People said Jackson had made his fortune driving cattle from Texas to the railheads up north, that he was tough as leather and twice as hard to tear. She finished scrubbing the shirt and hung it to dry, then moved on to the next basket. Her back ached, her feet throbbed, and she still had 6 more hours before Mrs. Murphy would let her leave. The work was endless, monotonous, soul-crushing. Sometimes, Sophia wondered if this was all her life would ever be, washing other people's clothes until her hands gave out and she ended up begging on the streets or worse. The next day, when Cole Jackson came to collect his laundry, Sophia was at the front counter because Mrs. Murphy had gone to the bank. She heard the door open and looked up from the ledger she had been pretending to understand. The numbers swam before her eyes. She had never been good at arithmetic, and Mrs. Murphy's handwriting was an incomprehensible scrawl. The man who entered was tall, with broad shoulders that filled the doorway. He wore dust-covered boots, dark trousers, and a shirt that had seen better days. His hat shaded his face, but she could see a strong jaw covered in several days' worth of stubble and eyes that were a startling shade of blue-green, like the shallow parts of a river. He was perhaps 27 or 28, weathered by sun and wind but handsome in a rugged way that made Sophia's breath catch. "Afternoon," he said, his voice deep and measured. "I am here for the Jackson order." Sophia's hands trembled slightly as she searched through the wrapped bundles behind the counter. She found his name on a package and pulled it down, nearly dropping it in her nervousness. "That will be 50 cents. He produced a silver dollar and placed it on the counter. Their fingers brushed when she picked it up, and she felt a jolt run through her that had nothing to do with static. She fumbled with the cash box, trying to make change. "Keep it," he said. She looked up sharply. "Sir, that is too much. Consider it a tip for getting those stains out." "I had thought the shirt was ruined." He smiled, and it transformed his entire face, softening the hard edges and revealing something warm underneath. Thank you." Sophia's cheeks burned. She was not accustomed to kindness, especially not from customers who usually treated her as invisible. He took the package but did not immediately leave. Instead, he studied her with an intensity that made her want to squirm. "You look tired. Does Mrs. Murphy work you very hard?" The question caught her off guard. "No harder than anyone else," she lied, loyalty or fear making her defend her employer despite everything. He did not sound convinced. "What is your name?" "Sophia Carter, sir." "Cole Jackson." He tipped his hat. "Pleased to make your acquaintance, Miss Carter." After he left, Sophia found she could not stop thinking about him. She told herself it was only because he had been kind, because kindness was so rare in her life that even a small gesture felt monumental. But that night, lying in her small room with her stomach empty and her body aching, she thought about those river-colored eyes and the way he had looked at her as though she actually mattered. 3 days later, Cole Jackson returned. This time he brought more laundry, an improbable amount for a single man. Mrs. Murphy took the order, quoting an exorbitant price that would have made most customers balk, but Jackson paid without comment. As he turned to leave, he caught Sophia's eye and nodded. She nodded back, confused and oddly pleased. He came again 2 days after that, and then 3 days later, and then with increasing frequency. Each time, he found a reason to speak with Sophia if she was at the counter. He asked about her day, commented on the weather, mentioned things happening around town. The conversations were brief and superficial, but they were the bright spots in Sophia's otherwise gray existence. "That cowboy has taken a shine to you," Clara said one afternoon as they worked side by side, their hands red and raw in the scalding water. "Don't be ridiculous," Sophia replied, but her heart fluttered at the suggestion. "I am not being ridiculous. Everyone has noticed." Why else would a man need his laundry done twice a week? He has got people working for him. Could get one of them to do it. Sophia had wondered the same thing but had not let herself hope. Hope was dangerous. Hope led to disappointment, and she had experienced enough of that to last a lifetime. One evening, as Sophia was leaving the laundry after a particularly brutal 14-hour shift, she found Cole Jackson waiting outside. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple that seemed impossible in their beauty. She stopped short, clutching her shawl around her shoulders. "Mr. Jackson, is something wrong with your order?" "No, everything is fine." He removed his hat, turning it in his hands. "I was hoping I might walk you home, Miss Carter. It is getting dark and the streets are not always safe." She should have declined. A proper lady would have declined. But Sophia was too tired to be proper, and the thought of walking alone through the darkening streets held little appeal. "That is kind of you." They walked in silence for a while, their footsteps echoing on the wooden boardwalk. Sophia was acutely aware of his presence beside her, of the subtle masculine scent of leather and sage that clung to him. "How long have you worked at the laundry?" he asked finally. 3 years, since I was 18, since my mother passed." "I am sorry for your loss. Do you have other family?" "No, it is just me now." She kept her voice steady, refusing to let the loneliness seep through. That must be difficult, she shrugged. Everyone has their burdens to bear. What brought you to Randsburg, Mr. Jackson? Please call me Cole. I came here because I saw opportunity. The Henderson Ranch was going for a song, and despite the drought, I believe this land has potential. I have been ranching since I was 15, worked my way up from nothing, saved every penny until I could afford my own operation. That is admirable. She meant it. She understood what it meant to work for everything you had, even if what you had amounted to almost nothing. They reached the general store, and Sophia stopped at the external staircase that led to her room. Thank you for the company, Cole. He looked up at the shabby building, at the peeling paint and sagging porch. You live here? Yes. It is not much, but it is mine. She tried to keep the defensiveness from her voice. Miss Carter, Sophia, I wonder if you might permit me to call on you properly. Perhaps take you to dinner on Sunday. Her heart hammered against her ribs. I do not understand. Why would you want to? Because I find you intriguing. Because in the few conversations we have had, I have seen intelligence and strength in you that I admire. Because I would like to know you better. He spoke plainly, without flowery words or false flattery, and somehow that made it all the more affecting. I would like that, she heard herself say. Sunday arrived with agonizing slowness. Sophia had only one good dress, a faded blue cotton that she had mended so many times the seams were more thread than fabric. She did her best with it, washing and pressing it until it looked almost respectable. Clara lent her a ribbon for her hair, and she pinched her cheeks to bring color to her pale face. Cole arrived precisely at 6, dressed in clean trousers, a pressed shirt, and a jacket that looked new. He had shaved, revealing the strong lines of his jaw, and his hair was neatly combed back. He looked at Sophia as though she were wearing silk instead of faded cotton, and offered his arm like she was a lady of quality. They went to the hotel restaurant, the finest establishment in Randsburg. Sophia had never eaten there, had only peered through the windows at the white tablecloths and gleaming silver. When they entered, several heads turned. She felt the weight of curious stares and heard the whispers that followed them to their table. Pay them no mind, Cole said quietly, pulling out her chair. People in small towns have nothing better to do than gossip. The menu offered dishes Sophia had not tasted in years, since before her father died. She ordered carefully, choosing the least expensive option, but Cole insisted she get whatever she wanted. Please, let me do this. The food, when it arrived, was delicious. Tender roast beef, buttery potatoes, fresh vegetables that must have cost a fortune in this desert town. Sophia tried to eat slowly, to savor each bite, but she was so hungry that it took all her willpower not to devour everything on her plate. Cole talked about his plans for the ranch, about the cattle he was bringing in from Texas, about his hopes for the future. He spoke with passion and confidence, painting a picture of something solid and enduring in a place where most things were temporary and fragile. What about you? He asked eventually. What are your dreams, Sophia? The question stumped her. She had spent so long simply trying to survive that she had forgotten how to dream. I suppose I dream of security, of not wondering where my next meal will come from or whether I will make rent, of having a home that is truly mine. Those are not foolish dreams. They are the foundation of everything else. His eyes held hers across the table. You deserve those things, Sophia. You deserve so much more than what you have been given. Something in his voice, in the way he looked at her, made her throat tighten. Why are you being so kind to me, Cole? What do you want? I want to know you. I want to see you smile. I want to give you reasons to hope again. He reached across the table and took her hand. His skin was calloused, his grip strong but gentle. From the first time I saw you at that laundry, trying so hard to be invisible while working yourself to the bone, I have not been able to stop thinking about you. There is something about you, Sophia, something real and true in a world full of pretense. You do not know me, she whispered. Then let me. Give me the chance. Over the following weeks, Cole courted her with a determination that was both flattering and overwhelming. He appeared at the laundry every few days, always with an excuse, always finding ways to speak with her. He walked her home most evenings, and on Sundays, he took her to dinner, or for walks on the outskirts of town where the desert stretched endlessly under the vast sky. She learned that he had grown up on a small farm in Missouri, that his father had died when he was young, and that he had helped his mother keep the farm running until she remarried. He had left at 15 to make his own way, working as a ranch hand, a trail driver, and eventually a foreman. He had saved every dollar, invested wisely, and now at 28 he owned his own ranch and had ambitions to build something lasting. I am tired of drifting, he told her one evening as they sat on a rock outcropping watching the sun set. I want roots. I want a family. I want to build something that will outlast me. Sophia felt the weight of unspoken questions in his words. She was falling for him, had been falling since that first conversation, but part of her held back. She was desperately poor, uneducated beyond basic reading and writing, with nothing to offer a man of his ambition. What could he possibly see in her? As if reading her thoughts, Cole turned to her. I know what you are thinking. You are wondering what I could want with a laundry girl who has nothing to her name. But Sophia, you are wrong about having nothing. You have strength that most people never develop. You have dignity despite circumstances that would break others. You have kindness that has not been crushed by hardship. Those things are worth more than gold to me, Cole. She did not know what to say. I am not a man who wastes time on things that do not matter. I know my own mind. I know what I want. He took both her hands in his. I am getting ahead of myself. We have only been acquainted for a few weeks, but I need you to know that my intentions are serious. Her heart raced. What are you saying? I am saying that I am courting you with the intent to marry you if you will have me. I am saying that I am falling in love with you, and I hope that perhaps you might feel the same way. Sophia's eyes filled with tears. I do feel the same way. But Cole, you could have anyone. You could have a woman with education, with money, with connections. Why would you settle for someone like me? You are not settling. You are everything I want. He cupped her face gently, wiping away a tear with his thumb. Sophia Carter, you are the bravest, most beautiful woman I have ever met, and I would be honored if you would let me take care of you the way you deserve. She kissed him then, her first real kiss, and it felt like coming home to a place she had never been. His arms wrapped around her, holding her close, and for the first time in years, Sophia felt safe. But reality intruded quickly. Mrs. Murphy had noticed Cole's attention and had begun treating Sophia even more harshly, piling on extra work and finding fault with everything she did. One day, as Sophia was finishing a particularly difficult stain, the old woman appeared at her shoulder. You think you are special because some cowboy sniffs around you. Mrs. Murphy's voice dripped with venom. Men like that do not marry girls like you. They use them and cast them aside. You would be better off remembering your place. The words stung, not because Sophia believed them, but because they echoed her own deepest fears. That night when Cole walked her home, she was quiet and withdrawn. What is wrong? He asked. She told him about Mrs. Murphy's words, about the way the other townspeople looked at her, about the whispers that followed them everywhere. Maybe she is right. Maybe I am fooling myself. Cole stopped walking and turned to face her. Sophia, look at me. Mrs. Murphy is a bitter old woman who cannot stand to see someone escape the trap she has set for her workers. The people who whisper are small-minded fools. The only opinions that matter are yours and mine. Do you love me? Yes, she whispered, and I love you. Everything else is just noise. He took a deep breath. I had planned to wait longer to court you properly for months before asking, but I cannot stand seeing you doubt yourself or doubt us. Sophia Carter, will you marry me? She stared at him, certain she had misheard. What? Marry me, be my wife. Let me give you my name, my home, my fortune such as it is. Let me spend the rest of my life proving to you that you are worth everything to me. He pulled a small box from his pocket and opened it to reveal a simple gold band set with a small diamond that caught the lamplight. I know it is not much, but it is everything, Sophia breathed. Yes, yes, I will marry you. He slipped the ring onto her finger and it fit perfectly. Then he kissed her, right there on the street where anyone could see, and Sophia did not care. Let them see. Let them talk. She was going to marry Cole Jackson. The next morning, Sophia walked into Murphy's laundry with her head held high. Mrs. Murphy looked up from the ledger, her expression sour. You are late. I am leaving, Sophia said calmly. I am giving you notice. I will work through the end of this week, but then I am done. Mrs. Murphy's face turned purple. You ungrateful girl. After everything I have done for you, you think you can just walk away. Yes, I am getting married. Thank you for the work, but I will not be returning after Friday. Married. To that cowboy, Mrs. Murphy laughed harshly. You are a fool. Men like that do not marry laundry girls. He will abandon you, and then where will you be? I will not take you back. I will not need to come back. Sophia turned away and began her work, ignoring the older woman's continued tirade. Clara approached during their break, her eyes wide. Is it true? Are you really marrying Cole Jackson? Yes, he proposed last night. Sophia, that is wonderful. Clara hugged her, and Sophia felt tears prick her eyes. Clara had been her only friend through the long years at the laundry. I am so happy for you. You deserve this. Thank you. I wish the same happiness for you, maybe someday. For now, I will live through you. Clara smiled, though there was sadness in her eyes. The week passed in a blur. Cole had arranged for them to be married the following Saturday by the circuit preacher who came through Randsburg once a month. It would be a simple ceremony, but Sophia did not care. She would have married him in front of a tree stump if necessary. Cole took her shopping for a wedding dress, insisting on buying her something new. She chose a modest white dress with lace at the collar and cuffs, the most beautiful thing she had ever owned. He also bought her shoes, a coat, undergarments, and several day dresses, spending money without hesitation despite her protests. You are going to be my wife, he said firmly. Let me provide for you. It gives me joy to see you have things you need. He also took her to meet his ranch hands, a dozen men of varying ages who would be her neighbors and, in a sense, her extended family. They were rough men, hardened by years of outdoor work, but they treated her with respect and welcomed her warmly. She met the cook, a gruff man named Pete who promised to teach her his recipes, and the foreman, Tom, who had worked with Cole for years. The ranch itself took her breath away. It was larger than she had imagined, with a main house that needed work but had good bones, several outbuildings, corrals, and thousands of acres of grazing land stretching toward the mountains. Cole showed her everything, pointing out his plans for improvements and expansions. This will be our home, he said as they stood on the porch of the main house. Our children will grow up here. We will build something that lasts. Children, Sophia repeated softly. She had not let herself think that far ahead, had not dared to imagine a future that full and rich. I hope so. If you want them. Do you want children, Sophia? Yes, she said. I do. Saturday arrived with brilliant sunshine and a slight breeze that kept the heat bearable. Clara came early to help Sophia dress, pinning up her dark hair and weaving in small wildflowers that Cole had picked that morning. When Sophia looked at herself in the mirror, she barely recognized the woman staring back. She looked happy, hopeful, almost beautiful. The ceremony took place in front of the ranch house, with all the ranch hands in attendance along with a few townspeople who had befriended Cole. Mrs. Murphy did not come, of course, but Sophia had not expected her to. Clara stood beside her, crying happy tears. Cole wore a new suit, his hair neatly combed, his eyes locked on Sophia as she walked toward him. The preacher spoke about love and commitment, about the sacred bond of marriage, but Sophia barely heard the words. She was too focused on Cole, on the promise in his eyes, on the future stretching before them. Do you, Sophia Carter, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband? I do, she said, her voice strong and clear. And do you, Cole Jackson, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife? I do, he said, and his voice was rough with emotion. Then, by the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss your bride. Cole cupped her face in his hands and kissed her gently, reverently, as though she were something precious and fragile. When they broke apart, cheers erupted from the gathered crowd. Sophia laughed, giddy with happiness, and Cole swept her into his arms and spun her around. They celebrated with a feast that Pete had prepared, tables laden with food and drink set up under the open sky. Music played, people danced, and Sophia found herself passed from partner to partner as the ranch hands each claimed a dance with the new bride. But her eyes kept finding Cole and his kept finding her, and eventually he reclaimed her and did not let her go. As the sun set and the guests began to drift away, Cole led Sophia into the house. He had spent the past week preparing the main bedroom, installing new curtains, repairing the bed frame and buying new linens. A fire crackled in the fireplace despite the warm evening, and candles cast soft shadows on the walls. "Are you nervous?" he asked, closing the door behind them. "A little," Sophia admitted. "Are you?" "Terrified," he said with a smile. "I want everything to be perfect for you. It already is perfect. You are perfect." She reached up to touch his face. "I love you, Cole. I love you too, Sophia, my wife." He said the last word with such reverence that she felt tears spring to her eyes. He kissed her then, deeper than before, and she responded with all the love and passion she had been holding back. He was gentle with her, patient, taking his time to make sure she felt safe and cherished. When they finally came together as husband and wife, it felt like the most natural thing in the world, like two pieces of a puzzle finally fitting together. Afterward, they lay tangled together, her head on his chest, his fingers trailing through her hair. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what?" "For seeing me when I was invisible, for believing I was worth something when I had forgotten how, for giving me hope. Sophia, you gave yourself hope. You survived and stayed kind when the world tried to make you hard. All I did was recognize what was already there." He kissed the top of her head. "You are the fortune, not me. You are the treasure I will spend the rest of my life being grateful for." The first months of marriage were an adjustment. Sophia had to learn how to run a household, how to manage a kitchen, how to be a rancher's wife. Pete taught her to cook hearty meals for hungry men, and she discovered she had a knack for it. She learned to sew and mend, skills that proved invaluable when dealing with torn clothes and worn linens. She learned to ride a horse so she could accompany Cole around the property. And though she was terrified at first, she eventually grew to love the freedom of it. Cole was patient with her, never criticizing when she burned dinner or fell off her horse, or made any of the 100 small mistakes that came with learning a new life. He praised her efforts and celebrated her successes, and slowly Sophia's confidence grew. She was not just surviving anymore. She was living. The ranch hands accepted her completely, treating her with a respect that still surprised her. They came to her with small injuries to bandage, with buttons that needed sewing, with requests for special meals. She became not just the boss's wife, but a valued member of their small community. Winter came, bringing cold nights and occasional rain that turned the desert briefly green. Cole spent long hours working on improvements to the ranch, and Sophia often worked beside him, holding tools or helping with repairs. They talked about everything and nothing, sharing stories from their pasts, dreams for their future, observations about the world around them. One evening in late January, as they sat by the fire after dinner, Cole pulled her onto his lap. "I have been thinking," he said. "About what? About how lucky I am. About how my life changed the day I walked into that laundry and saw a woman with tired eyes and bloody hands who still managed to stand straight and proud. I was not proud. I was desperate. You were magnificent." He kissed her temple. "You still are. You are biased, completely." He was quiet for a moment, then said, "Sophia, I know we have only been married a few months, but I need you to know something. You are not just my wife. You are my partner, my equal in all things. This ranch, everything I have, it is ours, not mine. I want you to feel secure, to know that no matter what happens, you will always be taken care of. Cole, nothing is going to happen. I know, but humor me. Tomorrow I am going to town to see the lawyer. I am going to make sure all the legal documents reflect that everything is in both our names. I want you to have real ownership, real security." She was moved beyond words. In an era when women had few legal rights and even fewer protections, Cole was offering her something precious, genuine partnership. "Thank you," she managed. "You never have to thank me for treating you the way you deserve to be treated." Spring arrived, and with it came the first real test of their marriage. A neighboring rancher, a man named Douglas who had been eyeing Cole's land with envy, began making trouble. He diverted water from the creek that ran through both properties, cutting off Cole's cattle from their primary water source. When Cole confronted him, Douglas claimed he had prior rights and refused to back down. The situation escalated quickly. Without adequate water, Cole's cattle began to suffer. He spent long days trying to find alternative sources and digging wells, but the work was expensive and time-consuming. Tension mounted, and Sophia watched helplessly as the stress wore on her husband. "We will find a solution," she told him one night as he sat at the kitchen table, going over accounts that did not add up the way he needed them to. "I do not know if there is one. If I cannot water the cattle, I will have to sell them at a loss. That could ruin us, Sophia. Then we will start over. We will find another way." He looked at her and some of the tension left his face. "How can you be so calm?" "Because I have been ruined before and I survived. Because I have you, and that is worth more than any ranch." She took his hands. "We will figure this out together." The next day, Sophia rode into town with Cole to meet with the lawyer. The man confirmed that Douglas's claim to the water rights was dubious at best, but a legal battle would be costly and time-consuming. As they left the office, Sophia had an idea. "What if we talk to the other ranchers?" she suggested. "Douglas cannot be the only one affected by water disputes. If we can get them to stand together, maybe we can pressure him into negotiating." Cole looked at her with surprise and admiration. "That is brilliant." Over the next week, they visited every ranch and farm in the area, explaining their situation and asking for support. To Sophia's surprise, people listened. Several other ranchers had dealt with Douglas's bullying tactics and were eager to push back. A meeting was organized, and Douglas found himself facing a united front. Cornered and outnumbered, Douglas agreed to restore the water flow and to respect established boundaries. The victory was sweet, made sweeter by the fact that it had been Sophia's idea that turned the tide. "You are quite the strategist," Cole told her on the ride home. "I just thought about what I would want if I were in his position. Nobody wants to be isolated and opposed by all their neighbors. Sometimes the best weapon is community. When did you get so wise?" "I have always been this wise." "You just married me for my looks," she teased. He laughed, the first real laugh she had heard from him in weeks. "Obviously. Your devastating beauty was the only thing that mattered to me." Their laughter rang out across the desert, full of joy and relief. Summer brought intense heat and the constant challenge of keeping livestock healthy in the harsh climate. But it also brought news that made Sophia's heart soar. She had missed her monthly courses twice, and her body was changing in subtle ways that she recognized from watching other women in town. When the doctor confirmed her suspicions, she could barely contain her excitement. She waited until dinner that evening to tell Cole. He had just finished telling her about a promising young colt one of the mares had foaled when she reached across the table and took his hand. "I have news," she said. "Good news, I hope. We could use more of that." "Very good news. We are going to have a baby." For a moment, Cole just stared at her. Then his face broke into the widest smile she had ever seen. He leaped up, came around the table, and pulled her into his arms. "Truly. We are going to be parents, truly. The doctor says the baby should arrive in early spring. Sophia, this is, I cannot even find words." He kissed her thoroughly, then dropped to his knees and pressed his face against her still flat stomach. "Hello in there, little one. This is your father. I promise to do my very best by you." She stroked his hair, overwhelmed with love and gratitude. A year ago, she had been alone and hopeless, washing blood from a stranger's shirt. Now she was married to a man she adored, living in a home of her own, expecting their first child. The transformation felt like a miracle. The pregnancy progressed smoothly through the fall. Sophia continued working around the ranch, though Cole became increasingly protective, insisting she avoid heavy lifting or anything that might endanger her or the baby. She found his concern endearing if occasionally frustrating. "I am pregnant, not made of glass," she told him when he tried to prevent her from riding her horse. "I know, but I cannot help worrying. You are carrying our child. You are precious cargo." She kissed him. "We will both be fine." "I promise to be careful." As her belly grew, so did her sense of contentment. She felt the baby move for the first time in November, tiny flutters that gradually became stronger kicks. Cole spent hours with his hand on her stomach, marveling at each movement. "You think it is a boy or a girl?" he asked one night. "I do not know. Does it matter to you? Not even a little. As long as you both are healthy, I will be the happiest man alive." Christmas came, and they celebrated quietly, just the two of them and Pete, who had nowhere else to go. They exchanged modest gifts and ate a feast that Sophia and Pete prepared together. Cole gave her a rocking chair he had made himself, sanding and polishing the wood until it gleamed. "For rocking the baby," he explained. "I thought we could put it in the nursery. We do not have a nursery yet." "We will. I am converting the small room next to ours. I have been working on it in the evenings." He looked almost shy. "I want everything to be ready." The new year arrived with continued preparations for their child. Cole finished the nursery, painting the walls a soft yellow and building a cradle that matched the rocking chair. Sophia sewed tiny clothes and blankets, her hands moving steadily as she created a layette for their baby. In late February, when the pain started, Cole panicked. He sent one of the ranch hands racing to town for the doctor and the midwife while he stayed with Sophia, holding her hand and looking terrified. "You need to breathe," she told him between contractions. "You breathe. You are the one doing all the work." "I am breathing." You are the one who looks like you might faint." Despite the pain, she found his reaction amusing. This strong, capable man who faced down angry bulls and hostile neighbors was completely undone by the prospect of childbirth. The midwife arrived first, a competent woman named Helen who had delivered half the babies in Randsburg. She shooed Cole out of the room despite his protests. "This is woman's work," she said firmly. "You can pace outside like every other expectant father in history." The labor was long and difficult. Sophia lost track of time, aware only of wave after wave of pain and Helen's calm, steady voice guiding her through it. She thought of her mother, who had done this alone after her father's death, and drew strength from that memory. If her mother could do this, so could she. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, she heard the sharp cry of a newborn baby. Helen worked quickly and then placed a tiny, squirming bundle in Sophia's arms. "You have a son," Helen announced. "A healthy, strong boy." Sophia looked down at the red-faced infant in her arms, at his tiny fingers and the dark hair plastered to his head, and felt her heart expand in ways she had not known were possible. "Hello," she whispered. "I am your mother." Helen opened the door and called for Cole. He burst into the room, looking wild-eyed and disheveled. When he saw Sophia holding the baby, he froze. "Come meet your son," Sophia said softly. He approached slowly, almost reverently, and looked down at the baby. "He is so small. He is perfect." She shifted the baby so Cole could see him better. "Would you like to hold him?" Cole nodded, speechless, and carefully took his son into his arms. The baby settled immediately, seeming to sense his father's strength. Cole looked at Sophia with tears streaming down his face. "Thank you. Thank you for this gift." They named him James, after Cole's father. Little James proved to be a relatively easy baby, sleeping well and nursing eagerly. Sophia fell into the rhythms of motherhood with more confidence than she had expected. And Cole was a devoted father, taking every opportunity to hold and play with his son. "I never knew I could love someone this much," he told Sophia one evening as they sat together, watching James sleep in his cradle. "I love you beyond measure, and now there is this tiny person who has completely stolen my heart. I know what you mean. It is overwhelming, is it not? All this love. The best kind of overwhelming." He pulled her close. "Thank you for giving me this family, Sophia, for making my life complete." The months that followed were busy and full. James grew quickly, becoming a chubby, cheerful baby who smiled easily and laughed at everything his father did. The ranch prospered as well. Cole's hard work paid off, and they were able to hire additional hands and expand their operations. On their second anniversary, Cole took Sophia into town for dinner at the same hotel restaurant where they had eaten on their first date. She wore a new dress, and her hair was styled more elegantly than her usual practical bun. James was home with Pete, who had proven surprisingly adept at caring for the baby. "You remember the last time we were here?" Cole asked as they waited for their meal. "I remember everything about that night. I remember thinking you were the most wonderful man I had ever met and being terrified that I was not good enough for you. And now I know that we are good enough for each other, that we are partners in every sense, that I married the right man." She smiled. "What about you? Any regrets?" "Not a single one. You are everything I hoped for and more than I deserved. You have made me happier than I ever thought possible." He reached across the table to take her hand. "Here is to many more years together, my love." "To many more years," she echoed. As they ate and talked, Sophia reflected on how much her life had changed. 2 years ago, she had been a laundry girl with no prospects and no hope. Now she was a wife, a mother, and a partner in a successful ranch. She had security, respect, and most importantly, love in abundance. The years that followed brought their share of challenges. There were droughts that tested their resources, market downturns that affected cattle prices, illnesses that struck the community. But through it all, Sophia and Cole faced everything together, their bond growing stronger with each obstacle they overcame. When James was 3, Sophia became pregnant again. This time, the pregnancy felt easier, perhaps because she knew what to expect. Cole was no less attentive but slightly less panicked, having been through it once before. Their second child, a daughter they named Mary, arrived on a crisp October morning. She had Sophia's dark hair and Cole's blue-green eyes, and from the moment she drew breath, she was fierce and determined. Where James had been an easy baby, Mary demanded attention and made her needs known loudly and frequently. "She is going to be a handful," Cole said admiringly as Mary wailed in his arms, refusing to settle. "She knows what she wants." "That is a good quality," Sophia said, though she was exhausted from yet another sleepless night. "She gets that from her mother." James adored his baby sister, wanting to help with everything. He brought her toys, sang to her in his off-key toddler voice, and appointed himself her protector. Watching her children together, Sophia felt her heart might burst with happiness. The ranch continued to thrive. Cole's reputation as a fair and competent cattleman spread, and he began consulting with other ranchers on herd management and land use. Sophia managed the household and started a vegetable garden that produced enough to feed everyone on the ranch with surplus to sell in town. She also began teaching some of the ranch hands to read and write in the evenings, discovering a talent for instruction that she had not known she possessed. Life settled into a comfortable routine. Mornings were spent on ranch work and household tasks, afternoons with the children, and evenings as a family. They had simple pleasures: Sunday dinners with everyone gathered around the big table, evening rides across the property, story time with the children before bed. When James was 6 and Mary 3, Sophia became pregnant with their third child. This pregnancy was more difficult than the previous two, with persistent nausea and fatigue that lasted well into the second trimester. Cole insisted she rest more, taking over many of her usual tasks and hiring additional help. Their third child, another son they named William, arrived on a sweltering August day. The birth was quick but intense, and afterward Sophia felt more exhausted than she had with the previous two. But when she held William with his shock of red-gold hair that came from neither parent, she felt only wonder. "Where did that hair come from?" Cole asked, gently touching the baby's head. "My grandmother had red hair," Sophia remembered. "I had forgotten until just now. He is beautiful." "They are all beautiful." Cole looked at his wife and 3 children with such love that Sophia felt tears spring to her eyes. "You have given me everything, Sophia." With 3 children, the house felt full of noise and life. James was responsible and serious, often acting older than his years. Mary was wild and adventurous, climbing everything and giving her parents constant heart attacks. William was placid and observant, content to watch the world around him with solemn eyes. The children grew up on the ranch, learning to ride almost before they could walk, helping with chores appropriate to their ages, and running free across the wide open spaces. They were healthy, happy, and secure in the knowledge that they were loved. Sophia sometimes thought about the life she might have lived if Cole had never walked into that laundry. She might have worked herself to death, or been forced into a desperate marriage with someone cruel or indifferent. She might never have known this kind of happiness, this sense of belonging and purpose. One evening, when the children were older and Cole had finally gotten them all to bed after much protest, he found Sophia sitting on the porch in the rocking chair he had made her years ago. She was looking out at the desert, at the stars that seemed close enough to touch. He sat beside her, taking her hand. "What are you thinking about?" "Everything. Nothing. How lucky we are." "I think about that often. How different things might have been if I had not needed my laundry done that week." He smiled. "Though I would have found another excuse to meet you. I was quite determined." "Were you really? I thought it was just coincidence that you kept coming back." "Sophia, I washed my own clothes for 15 years before I met you. I did not suddenly forget how the moment I rode into Randsburg." He lifted her hand to his lips. "I saw you and I knew. I cannot explain it better than that. I just knew you were going to be important to me. I am glad you were persistent. I am glad you took a chance on a cowboy with more ambition than sense." They sat in comfortable silence, hands intertwined, watching the stars wheel slowly overhead. The ranch was quiet except for the usual night sounds: cattle lowing in the distance, the rustle of wind through dry grass, the occasional call of a coyote. "You ever miss working?" Cole asked. "You were so good with teaching the hands to read. Have you thought about maybe teaching in town?" "I have thought about it," Sophia admitted. "But right now the children need me. Maybe when they are older I will do something like that. For now I am content where I am. As long as you are happy, I am happy." "I am happy, Cole, happier than I ever thought possible." The children continued to grow. James showed an aptitude for ranching and loved working alongside his father. Mary developed a passion for horses and rode with a fearlessness that terrified Sophia. William was quieter, preferring books to outdoor activities, and Sophia recognized something of herself in him. When James turned 10, Cole began teaching him the intricacies of ranch management, showing him account books and explaining the business side of their operation. "Someday this will all be yours and your siblings to share," Cole told him. "I want you to be prepared." Mary, at 7, declared she wanted to be a trick rider and started practicing stunts that made both parents age prematurely. William, at 4, learned his letters with astonishing speed and was soon reading simple books. Sophia watched her children develop into individuals with their own personalities and dreams, and marveled at the family she and Cole had created. They were not wealthy by some standards, but they had everything that mattered: land, security, each other. The town of Randsburg changed around them. More families settled in the area, drawn by mining opportunities and the promise of the West. A proper school was established, and Sophia enrolled the children, though they continued their education at home as well. The rough edges of frontier life began to smooth out as civilization encroached, bringing both benefits and complications. But the Jackson Ranch remained a constant, a place of stability in a changing world. The main house had been expanded and improved over the years, but it retained its essential character. It was a home in the truest sense, filled with love and laughter and the accumulated memories of a family. On their 10th anniversary, Cole surprised Sophia with a trip to San Francisco, just the two of them while Pete and the older children watched William. It was the first time they had been away from the ranch together since their honeymoon, and Sophia felt oddly nervous about leaving her children. "They will be fine," Cole assured her as they boarded the train. "And we will only be gone a week. You deserve a holiday." San Francisco was overwhelming and exciting. They stayed in a fine hotel, ate at elegant restaurants, and attended the theater. Sophia bought gifts for the children and some cloth to make new curtains. But as wonderful as it was, she found herself missing home, missing the familiar rhythms of ranch life. "I never thought I would say this," she told Cole as they rode the train home, "but I am eager to get back to the chaos of our children and the ranch." "That is because that is where your heart is. That is where both our hearts are." He pulled her close. But I am glad we had this time together, just us. So am I. Thank you for thinking of it. When they arrived home, the children mobbed them, all talking at once about everything that had happened in their absence. Mary had fallen off a fence and scraped her knee. James had helped deliver a calf. William had learned a new song. The house was in slight disarray, and Pete looked exhausted but proud. "Everyone survived," he announced. "Barely, but we made it." Sophia hugged each of her children, breathing in their familiar scents, feeling complete again. This was her life, her family, her world, and it was more than enough. The teenage years brought new challenges as James became more independent, wanting to make his own decisions about his future. Mary continued her wild ways, occasionally getting into trouble for her antics. William remained studious, expressing interest in becoming a teacher or maybe even a lawyer. Cole navigated these challenges with patience and wisdom, remembering what it was like to be young and eager to prove himself. Sophia provided the emotional support, the listening ear, the gentle guidance. Together, they raised their children to be independent thinkers who knew they were loved unconditionally. When James was 18, he announced he wanted to take some of the cattle to market himself, to prove he could handle the responsibility. Cole agreed, though Sophia worried until the day James returned, triumphant and slightly more mature for the experience. Mary at 15 was a force of nature, beautiful and wild and determined to forge her own path. She talked about traveling, about seeing the world beyond Randsburg. Sophia understood the impulse, but hoped Mary would stay close to home. William at 12 was the family scholar, always with his nose in a book. He asked questions that made Cole scratch his head and come to Sophia for help. "Your son is too smart for me," he would say, and Sophia would laugh and try to explain whatever philosophical concept William was pondering. Through it all, Sophia and Cole remained partners in every sense. Their love had deepened over the years, growing from passionate romance into something more enduring and profound. They knew each other's thoughts, finished each other's sentences, and could communicate with a glance across a crowded room. "You remember what Mrs. Murphy said?" Sophia asked one night as they prepared for bed. "That men like you do not marry girls like me, I remember." "Why?" I was thinking about how wrong she was, about how if she could see us now, see what we have built together, she would have to eat her words. Mrs. Murphy was a bitter, small-minded woman. Her opinion never mattered. He pulled Sophia into his arms. "You were always worthy of love and respect. I just had the good fortune to recognize it. Still, I would like her to know that I did not end up destitute and abandoned. That the cowboy who offered me a fortune and his name kept both promises and more. I hope she does know. I hope everyone who doubted you knows how wrong they were." He kissed her softly. "You are the strongest person I have ever met, Sophia Jackson. You took your life and shaped it into something beautiful despite everything working against you. That is what I saw in you that first day, and that is what I see in you now." Years continued to pass. James married a local girl named Rachel and took over most of the day-to-day ranch operations. They built a house on the property and soon produced grandchildren that made Sophia feel simultaneously old and blessed. Mary eventually settled down with a horse trainer and opened a riding school. William went east to university and came back with a law degree, setting up practice in town. Cole and Sophia slowly stepped back from active ranch management, content to let the next generation take over. They spent their days working in the garden, reading, taking long rides across land they had spent decades improving. They watched their grandchildren grow, delighting in each new addition to the family. On their 30th anniversary, surrounded by children, grandchildren, and friends, Cole raised a glass to toast his wife. 30 years ago, I walked into a laundry and met a woman who changed my life. She was working for Pennies, wearing herself out for people who did not appreciate her. I offered her what I had: my name, my fortune such as it was, and my heart. But the truth is, she gave me far more than I ever gave her. She gave me a home, a family, and a love that has been the foundation of everything good in my life. To Sophia, the woman who made me better than I ever thought I could be. Everyone cheered, and Sophia felt tears stream down her face. She looked around at the gathered crowd, her children now grown with families of their own. The ranch hands who had become extended family. The friends they had made over the decades, and felt overwhelmed with gratitude. Later that evening, when the guests had gone and they were alone, Cole and Sophia sat on the porch as they had done countless times before. The rocking chair he had made 30 years ago was still sturdy, still holding her comfortably. "Do you ever wonder what your life would have been like if I had not walked into that laundry?" Cole asked. "Sometimes, but not often. I cannot imagine any other life than the one we have built together." She reached for his hand. "You saved me, Cole. No, you saved yourself. I just offered you an opportunity. You offered me everything, and you kept every promise. I will keep them until my last breath." He brought her hand to his lips. "I love you, Sophia, today, tomorrow, always. I love you too, more than words can express." They sat together as the sun set over the desert, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. The ranch stretched out before them, prosperous and peaceful. Their children were settled and happy. Their grandchildren were healthy and loved. They had built something lasting, something good. Sophia thought back to that day in the laundry, to the blood-stained collar she had scrubbed until her hands bled. She thought about the desperation and hopelessness that had been her constant companions. And then she thought about everything that had happened since the proposal, the marriage, the children, the decades of love and partnership. "Thank you," she whispered to Cole. "For what? For seeing me. For believing in me. For giving me a life beyond my wildest dreams. Thank you for saying yes. For taking a chance on a cowboy with big dreams and not much else. For building this life with me." He squeezed her hand. "We make a good team, you and I. The best team." As darkness fell and stars emerged in the vast sky above, they remained on the porch, content in each other's company. They had weathered storms and celebrated triumphs. They had raised children and built a legacy. They had loved each other through easy times and hard, never wavering in their commitment. The cowboy had offered the laundry girl a fortune and his name. But what he had truly given her was something more valuable, a future filled with love, dignity, and belonging. And what she had given him in return was equally precious. A home, a family, and a love that had endured through all the years and would continue until their very last days. In the end, they had both won the greatest fortune of all: each other. The years that followed brought the natural progression of life. Cole developed a persistent cough one winter that worried Sophia, but he recovered and seemed stronger than ever. They celebrated each new grandchild, each birthday, each milestone with enthusiasm and gratitude. They traveled occasionally, visiting William in his law office or watching Mary work with horses, but always returned home to the ranch that had been the center of their world. When Cole turned 60, he finally admitted he was slowing down. His joints ached in the mornings and he tired more easily than before. But his spirit remained strong, and his love for Sophia never diminished. If anything, it grew more tender and precious with each passing year. "We have had a good run," he told her one evening. "We are not done yet," she replied firmly. "We have many more years ahead of us." "I hope so. I cannot imagine eternity without you." He pulled her close. "Promise me something, Sophia. If I go first, do not close yourself off. Keep living, keep finding joy. Our children and grandchildren need you. Do not talk like that. You are not going anywhere. I know, but promise me anyway. I promise. But only if you promise me the same. Deal. They continued their life together, savoring each day as the gift it was. They took walks in the cool evenings, worked side by side in the garden, and played with their grandchildren who came to visit regularly. They sat on the porch each night, holding hands and watching the sunset, content in the silence that comes from knowing someone so completely that words become unnecessary. On a spring morning when wildflowers painted the desert in impossible colors, Sophia woke to find Cole watching her with such love that it took her breath away. "Good morning, beautiful," he said. "Good morning. How long have you been awake?" "A while. I was just enjoying watching you sleep. After all these years, I still cannot believe my luck." He brushed a strand of silver hair from her face. "I love you, Sophia Jackson." "I love you too, Cole Jackson, now and always." They rose and faced another day together, as they had done for decades and would continue to do for many more. Their love story had begun in a laundry, with a cowboy who saw beauty and worth in a desperate girl. It had grown into something extraordinary, a partnership built on respect, passion, commitment, and unwavering devotion. Sometimes people in town still talked about them, the cowboy and the laundry girl who had built an empire of love and family. They spoke of Sophia's transformation from poverty to prosperity, of Cole's devotion to his wife, of the family they had created together. The story had become something of a legend, proof that love could transcend social boundaries and that true partnership could overcome any obstacle. But to Cole and Sophia, they were not a legend. They were simply two people who had found each other at exactly the right moment, who had chosen to build a life together, and who had never regretted that choice. They were husband and wife, partners and best friends, lovers who had grown old together and loved each other more with each passing year. As they sat on their porch that evening, surrounded by the sounds and scents of the ranch they had built together, Sophia reflected on the incredible journey her life had taken. From pennies in a laundry to prosperity on a ranch. From loneliness to being surrounded by family. From hopelessness to joy so profound, it sometimes brought tears to her eyes. "Thank you," she said again, knowing Cole would understand what she meant without elaboration. "Thank you," he replied, squeezing her hand. And there on the porch, as the sun set over the California desert and stars began to emerge in the darkening sky, Cole and Sophia Jackson sat together in the comfortable silence of two souls who had found their home in each other. They had lived their love story, and it had been more beautiful than either could have imagined on that day so long ago when a cowboy walked into a laundry and changed both their lives forever. The fortune he offered had been gold and land, but the true wealth had been the love they shared. The name he gave her had been his own, but the identity she had found had been so much more: wife, mother, grandmother, partner, friend. She had been a laundry girl working for pennies, but she had become a woman rich beyond measure in all the ways that truly mattered. And as night fell and they finally rose to go inside, Sophia knew with absolute certainty that she would make the same choice again if given the opportunity. She would say yes to the cowboy, yes to the fortune, yes to the name, and most importantly, yes to the love that had transformed her life from survival into a journey of joy, purpose, and fulfillment that exceeded every dream she had dared to dream.